Hey there, MrQuora here. Welcome to another episode of Did You Always Wanted to Know? In today's video we will get to know some interesting cricket stories. Sounds interesting, isn't it? So why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, to encourage me to keep bringing such interesting videos for you. By the way, if you are new to this channel, please click that subscribe button, and do not forget to also click that bell icon as well, to get notifications of all our upcoming videos. Oh, by the way, if you subscribe to this channel and write subscribed in the comments below, I will give you a shout out, in one of my next videos. Now it is time to get started then. Number 1. Shahid Afridi used Sachin Tendulkar's bat to hit the fastest ever ODI century. Shahid Afridi was flown in to play for the Pakistan team from West Indies to Nairobi in 1996 and didn't have a proper bat. That's when Waqar Younis gave young Afridi Sachin Tendulkar's bat. Afridi hit 11 sixes and 6 boundaries with the bat and scored a 37-ball century against Sri Lanka, which was the then fastest ODI century. The record, broken later by Corey Anderson in 36 balls, now belongs to South Africa's A.B. de Villiers in 31 balls. Number 2. Chris Gayle is the only batsman to hit a 6 off the first ball of a test match. In the 137 years of test cricket, no cricketer has ever hit a 6 off the first ball of a test match. Audacious Chris Gayle achieved this feat against Bangladesh in 2012 off debutant Sohag Ghazi. Number 3. Abbas Ali Baig was the first Indian cricketer to be kissed during a test match. When Abbas Ali Baig reached a half-century in the third test match against Australia at the Brabourne Stadium in 1960, a pretty young girl ran all the way from the north stand to greet the batsman. She kissed Baig on his cheek. Number 4. Vinod Kambly's test match average is better than his childhood friend Sachin Tendulkar. Vinod Kambly played only 17 test matches, which included 2 back-to-back double tons. Kambly's test average is 54.20, while his childhood friend Sachin Tendulkar averages 53.78 after 200 tests. Number 5. Sunil Gavaskar was out off the first ball of a test match thrice in his career. Sunil Gavaskar was the first batsman to reach 10,000 test runs, and he ended his career scoring 34 test centuries. But did you know he was out 3 times off the first ball of a test match? The bowlers to dismiss him were Jeff Arnold in Edgbaston, 1974, Malcolm Marshall in Kolkata, 1984, and Imran Khan in Jaipur, 1987. Number 6. ML Jaisima and Ravi Shastri are the only Indians to bat on all 5 days of a test match. Number 7. The only cricketer to play test cricket for India and England is Saif Ali Khan's grandfather, Iftikhar Ali Khan Patauda. Number 8. Lala Amarnath is the only bowler to dismiss Don Bradman hit wicket in test cricket. Number 9. India won the 1983 World Cup and won their first ever test at Lord's 3 years later in 1986. India won their second World Cup 28 years later in 2011 and remarkably won their second ever test at Lord's 3 years later in 2014. Number 10. India is the only country to win the 60 over, 50 over and 20 over World Cup. Number 11. Alex Stewart was born on the 4th of August 63 and he scored 8,463 test runs. Number 12. Wilfred Rhodes of England played test cricket till he was 52. Number 13. Alan Border played 153 consecutive test matches. Number 14. Australia beat England in the first ever test match by 45 runs held at the Melbourne Cricket Ground in 1877. 100 years later the opposition were the same, the venue was the same and the result as well was the same. Number 15. All 4 innings of a test on the same day. The 2000 Lord's Test between England and West Indies saw all the 4 innings being played on the same day. This feat was repeated 11 years later in the famous Cape Town Test where South Africa bowled out Australia for 47. Number 16. There's only one person who witnessed Jim Laker and Anil Kumble taking 10 wickets in an innings as a 10-year-old. Richard Stokes witnessed Jim Laker taking all 10 wickets in the 1956 Old Trafford Test against Australia. 43 years later he was in India watching the India vs Pakistan Test and saw Anil Kumble take all the 10 wickets in an innings. These were the only 2 test matches that Stokes has watched in his life. Number 17. On the morning of 11.11.11 South Africa needed 111 runs to win at 11:11 a.m. This coincidence occurred during the first test between South Africa and Australia at Cape Town. At 11:11 a.m., on 11.11.11, South Africa were 125 for 1, needing a further 111 runs for a win. Number 18. Peter Siddle remains the only bowler in international cricket to take a hat-trick on his birthday. This happened during the Brisbane Test against England on November 25, 2010. 19. India's Mohinder Amarnath is the only cricketer to be dismissed for handling the ball and obstructing the field. 20. Sachin Tendulkar played for Pakistan before India. Can you imagine Sachin Tendulkar playing for Pakistan before India? This happened during a practice match between India and Pakistan at the Brabourne Stadium in 1987, where Tendulkar came on the field as a substitute fielder for Pakistan. Apart from the interesting facts that I just told you, here is an interesting story from the field of cricket. This story was shared by former Indian player, Sachin Tendulkar, about facing former New Zealand all-rounder Chris Cairns, at a BMW event in Melbourne, when he was interviewed by Max Waller. Tendulkar narrates a story. India were playing against New Zealand in Mohali when Cairns was in middle of a good bowling spell, bowling at him and Rahul Dravid. Tendulkar reveals that the ball was reverse swinging and Cairns was beating them 2 to 3 times in the over. Tendulkar mentions that they were getting beaten as they were clueless as to where the shine and where the rough side was of the ball. An idea struck to Tendulkar which he discussed with Dravid. He told Dravid that from the non-striker's end, since he was closer to the bowler Cairns, he could observe when the bowler would take up his mark that which side is shinny and which is rough. So what he would do is, if Cairns gripped the ball to bowl an out-swinger, then Tendulkar would hold the bat in his left hand, and if Cairns was to bowl an in-swinger, then Tendulkar will hold the bat with his right hand at the non-striker's end. The whole audience had a laugh when Tendulkar reveals this. In a humorous way, he narrates that it was the only time in his career that he saw a batsman taking guard watch the non-striker, instead of watching the wrist of the bowler. The idea actually worked and runs flowed from the bat of Dravid and Tendulkar. While Tendulkar was doing this, the New Zealand fielders figured out what the Indian batsmen were up to, as normally a non-striker wouldn't look back at the bowler when he at his crease. It was Cairns' time to answer back and he bowled a cross-seamed delivery, after which he looked at Tendulkar and said, "What have you got for this?" The Indian batting maestro was however a step ahead. He concluded that he had warned Dravid that if he didn't know what was coming, he would hold the bat in the middle. His response led to an applause and laughter among the audience. Now let me tell me another amusing story from the world of cricket. In Chepauk, Chennai, which was Madras then, hosted one of the most landmark test matches of all time in 1986. The Tide Test. Dean Jones hit a memorable double century, but in doing so his body didn't support him. He urinated involuntarily, vomited, suffered from dehydration, lost weight, and was hospitalized after the effort. What is really interesting is that in the same test, under the same unbearable conditions, Greg Matthews bowled with 2 sweaters throughout the test. Not only that, he took 5 wickets in both innings. Steve Waugh recalled, "In out of my comfort zone, he wore 2 sleeveless sweaters throughout the day. Actually, he gave one to the umpire when he fielded and only wore them both when he was bowling. We just shook our heads in disbelief, because it was so hot with 90-degree, sick humidity, but as usual Greg had a theory. He explained that nomadic herders in the desert wore woolen coats because they kept the cool air in, thus acting as a kind of air conditioner. I don't think even many Indians can do that in a Chennai summer." Okay, one last story before I end today's video. In the 1970s, the umpires in New Zealand were notorious for being biased towards the home team, and almost all teams complained about it whenever they toured the country. It was India's turn to experience it when they toured New Zealand in 1976. And since India used to depend a lot on their spinners, it became harder as most close and catches or LBW decisions went against them. The bowlers were pretty much exasperated at the treatment. And so when India's premier bowler B.S. Chandrasekhar wrapped up the New Zealand innings in the second test by getting the batsman clean bowled, he did something that triggers a laugh even now, among those who were present there. After the last batsman was clean bowled, Chandra, as he used to be called, appealed vociferously for the dismissal. The dumbfounded umpire then asked him why on earth he was appealing as the batsman was clean bowled. That is when Chandra asked a question that summed up the level of umpiring quite admirably. He asked the umpire, "I know he is bowled, but is he out?" Well, that's all for today's video. If you liked today's video, then please like and share this video. Also, if you are new to this channel, then please consider subscribing to watch similar videos in future. Thanks for watching today. So until my next video, take care, stay safe and goodbye.